Hello, BookTube, and we're back here for another installment of Heinlein 2025. I'm joined today with Pat from Book Chat with Pat.
Hi.
Hello, Pat.
Hello.
And we're going to discuss Robert A. Heinlein's juvenile novel, The Star Beast, that he published in 1954, I think it is. Yeah. And yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah.
cover, and then compare it to mine.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
I think these are the when he goes to sleep, and these are the watching eyes.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
sure.
definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to discuss that, and I want to preface it to say that uh, the reason for this whole Heinlein 2025 that I was doing was to for me myself to re-explore Heinlein, and that's what I'm doing here. So and others are as well, like you're exploring it for the first time,
Hmm.
a lot of this, Pat.
Right.
So I want to say that we'll be making some um statements and things like that that we may change your mind as we read more and or for myself reread more. So don't think of anything as set in stone for this.
Right.
And I'm going to be using, and we're using some outside material, critical material to help with this as well, and discuss that critical material. And some of it is, yeah, we've seen this already, and that we agree with this up to this point, or well, we haven't seen this yet, so I'm holding reserve on opinions of these kind of things. So
Right.
this is how these are going to be. So I just wanted to clarify with everybody. Mark's here; he's popping in for a minute.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah. And so yeah, Star Beast. It was also published as a serial, unlike the other one that we did, the Red Planet. This was serialized in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, May to July 1954, and it was published after that. And I believe it was after that in uh, by Scribner's as a book.
Uh-huh.
But it was written between August 26th to September 23rd, 1953. Um,
Right.
that's the information I have here. The interesting thing is, it's published as a juvenile, as a book, but in the magazine, it was published as an adult
That
science
is
fiction story.
interesting. Yeah,
And I think we can see where he's straddling that as we go through the story as
definitely.
well, because it's not, I don't think it's a straightforward juvenile story here.
No, no,
Definitely not.
I
Uh,
didn't.
did you want to do a sort of a brief overview of the story, or did you want me to do it?
I mean, you can. Why don't you start and I'll jump in?
Okay, so there's going to be spoilers here. We do, to do this kind of thing, we can't do anything without spoilers. So basically, it's about well, the Star Beast is a large creature that has many arm or legs and eats anything and everything, metal, concrete,
Right.
wood, anything at all. And it's growing, and it's centuries old, that they know of, because John Thomas Stewart, the 11th, I think it is, or is
Mhm.
he the 12th, the 11th or 12th?
He's the 11th.
He's the 11th.
Yeah.
It's his great 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 grandfather who picked up this little creature while they were exploring a planet centuries earlier, and
Mhm.
they've kept it as a pet, and it's growing continuously, and it's currently getting into a little trouble, breaking out, eating other people's property, houses, cars, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there is the race. Like, they don't know who or what race this creature is from, but that race has been searching for their sort of queen, which we think it's a male creature, but it turns out it's a female, and they're searching for her, and it becomes a diplomatic incident of getting the creature back. And there's diplomats, they're afraid that this this new race is going to, obliterate Earth if they don't give this, acquiesce to all their demands. So we've got a lot of that. So it switches from uh, John Thomas Stewart to the diplomatic, and it's a 50-50 story because
Right.
there's dealing with him, the creature, and his friend Betty, who is a really interesting character we'll get into a little bit later.
Hmm.
And then switch to the diplomatic aspect of it, which they're mentioned, but and the creature is not even part of it,
Right.
just as mentioned in the reason for this.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think he's straddling both worlds here. And the reason for it, like in discussion with Mark Richardson, we were thinking, like, is it that that it's, a financial thing that he was doing, that he, in order to get it published as well as serialized as an adult one, or
Oh,
he it's none of the material that I've read around this suggests one thing or another,
uh-huh.
because what he was contracted to write a juvenile, and this is what he gave in, because in the letters that we see, he talks about this, and but it's not quite juvenile. So it's like,
No.
he might, and it's pretty clear that he was getting tired of writing the juvenile. So
Yes.
he, I think, was maybe trying to do something else, and then shoehorning this in as contractual. Yes, here it
Yeah.
is. You
Yeah.
know.
I agree. It almost felt like two different novels, to me. Uh, and I think that's why I had said in our chat that, I can't imagine kids reading this. I can't imagine kids being as intrigued by this one as, some of the other juveniles that, we've read. Because especially once it gets into the political negotiations,
Yeah,
I thought this would have lost, I think most 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids. I don't know that they would have found that very interesting. It felt like a different book, but I think you're right. I think I don't know if he was conflicted about what he was doing, or if he was trying to do two things, at
yeah.
the same time, if it was intentional.
Yeah, and the other thing is too that everybody sort of that have commented that we've read this, we
Hmm.
find it quite a tedious story.
Yeah.
It's like it was difficult to read, to complete. There were spots that were good, and we'll I think I will hit on a couple of them,
Yes.
but it was a slog. It was like, because there's a court case, and you think, okay, that should, you know, ramp up some interest, but no, it fell flat on its
It
face.
did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was difficult, and because it was after the court case, it all of a sudden switches, and it's like you're no
Mhm.
longer in a juvenile anymore, or
That's
it
right.
didn't feel like it was a juvenile anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And in fact, because it starts from the point of view actually of the beast, of the creature, so I thought, oh, that's interesting, that we're actually, I mean, the opening line, Lummox was bored and hungry, and then it goes off on its, on its adventure. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool, and then it becomes almost like a, slapstick, when
yeah,
they start chasing the beast, and we've got like Keystone Cops, running around after this
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And it was very entertaining. And then it just became something else, and it was slow going for a while there. And I thought, oh, this isn't like this isn't like the Red Planet, at all. So
yeah. And the characters too were like, even the main character, John Thomas Stewart,
yeah.
was flat, and his mother was not very good either. She was like manipulative, very old fashioned in many ways, and not sympathetic
Right.
character, or even sympathetic for him. She had this plan for her son, and she wanted this to happen.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then we mentioned this Betty, who, a friend, she was like, I could use an old term that probably Heinlein would. She was full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
She
Yes, she
she
was.
she basically was a spark, and she reminded me a lot too of the younger female character, well, the sister in Red Planet, because she was like this. She was better. Like, he crafted them very well.
Yep.
And in the short stories, The Menace from Earth, the title story of The Menace from Earth, the girl in there too, I can't remember her name, but
Uh-huh.
she was smart. She was a rocket engineer, or a
Mhm.
budding rocket engineer. And it's juvenile, I think, in some ways, in the sense where you've got a change of the main character, especially the male character, who grows up at the end.
Right. Right.
And in this case, like in Red Planet, he grew up, he became a man at the end, in a sense, because he realizes what the creature was, and he's got to be a man and allow the creature to be itself, the
Right.
Martian, and do this. And also too, it changed sex as well there. So
Yes.
he's got this other theme that's happening, and which appears to be a theme throughout a lot of his Heinlein's works. And this is something that I don't remember very much from reading.
Uh-huh.
um, and and the and in this case, he becomes a man. And then they specifically talk about this, because the diplomat who's doing all this,
Mhm.
or the diplomat that is negotiating, is speaking to his mother, and she's saying, well, he's just a child.
Yes.
And he's saying, well, what when does a person become a man?
Right.
And like he's saying, some people say it's just a date, like 18th birthday or 21st birthday, you're then a man. And
Mhm.
he's saying, no, it's other things. Younger people than John Thomas have become a man and died, in battle.
Yes.
And so at this time, he becomes a man because he's separated, and he's going with, at the end, because the
Right.
Lummox is sent back to the home planet, and actually she controls things.
That's
uh
right. That's right.
and and the interesting thing is, John Thomas and his forefathers have treated Lummox as a pet.
Yes.
But the fact is, the John Thomases are pets.
Yes. Yes.
She's been raising John Thomases.
That's right. I thought that
And
was wonderful.
you notice I've been saying John Thomas several times.
Yes.
This is something that Heinlein, I was thinking this at the beginning, and pardon me. And in this, he talks about this, that he I guess, because he didn't like the editors or something like this, he would put things in that went over their head. So he used the euphemism
Uh-huh.
for penis, and he did this many times through his stuff, and they never noticed it.
They didn't get it. They didn't
Yeah,
get it. Well, if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have gotten it either, I mean, yeah, he was very subversive, but you can't blame him. I mean, they tortured him. I mean, they were really scolds, and the standards were so different then, the things you could and couldn't talk about, and the things they made him
yeah,
change or wanted him to change. And so good for him that he
yeah.
got a couple little zingers in there. So
Yeah, well, it's especially where the line is that Lummox is raising, John Thomas is, it's like, come on,
whoa,
you didn't get
whoa.
that one. you know uh
Yeah.
and the other, well, yeah, because there's stuff in there about the editing of it as well, in the Grumbles from the Grave. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that I'm just loving this book that we've been reading along with um, each of the books, and this is a collection of really the correspondence that went on between Heinlein, and I'm not even sure who he's talking to sometimes, but
His agent usually, and
his agent. Okay.
yeah, and then Dalgleish is His
Dalglish is the editor, and yeah, and so we find, the difficulties that he really had and the changes that they wanted him to make in each of these books, and you really start to feel like he's sort of being, he's almost being harassed, uh, with the changes that they want him to make. Now with this one, I didn't notice as much as what we had talked about with the Red Planet. Um, it seemed like what they were objecting to here, he kind of got away with anyway, right? I mean,
yeah,
there was some objection. The Betty character actually separates from her parents, and she divorces her parents and sort of becomes, a liberated young person. I guess she's under 18, an emancipated child. And they didn't want that in the book. They wanted that taken out because they didn't like that. That was sort of against, I guess, family values. I don't know, but he did keep that in. That
yeah.
that is still part of the story. But for this one, we see him going back and forth with his agent, and he's actually thinking about leaving Scribner's because of the hard time that he is given over, definitely over the juveniles. I don't know if he has a hard time over the other things that he writes too. Um, but he just talks about uh, having to appease these, I think he calls them knotheads in one
Yeah.
place, um, and he's really really frustrated with this Miss Dalglish, who is, I think her title is librarian or something at Scribner's, and but she actually says, you think I'm bad, it's going to be much worse any place else that you go. If you go to any other company, you're going to find, much more stringent standards than what I'm doing, and that I'm actually, he feels like nobody's defending him. And she says, but I am, I'm doing the best I can by you, and you're not going to get this if you go someplace else. And one of the things that I found particularly moving, was when he talked about how proud he was to be a writer for Scribner's, and yet these battles with the editors, um, were making him feel like they weren't proud of him. And I found that very moving, and it made me feel, I mean, I am sympathetic toward him anyway, but it really made me feel, yeah, sort of sorry for him. He talks about how much pride he has taken in this series that he's written, and that he doesn't think he's corrupted any youths, and that he hasn't done anything to harm the youth of America. And he thinks he's done a lot more than comics have done for the young. And then he says here, uh, if I decide to do another one, I do not know that I wish it to be submitted to Scribner's. I have taken great pride in being a Scribner's author, but that pride is all gone now that I have discovered that they are not proud of me. And, that made me see him as, this is a guy who's really trying to do something, and he's trying to do something useful and helpful for young people. And it is something that he's proud of, and he says it's been to him a worthwhile accomplishment. But hey, I'm ready to go someplace else if they don't like what I have to offer. And I mean, I guess he didn't go somewhere else, but at this point, you can see him like on his way out the door.
Yeah, well, they one of the later ones, the Starship Troopers, they rejected it, so that was went somewhere else because
That's right. That's
they
right.
rejected it. Yeah, but the other thing is too that it different from the Red Planet one. He was spending more time sort of arguing with Dalglish on things, and they kept in that one, they kept in the guns, but they changed a little bit. Here they kept in the divorce, but she did tone it down. But
Uh-huh.
he didn't. It's as if he uh, had, his fill of this, and he allowed his agent to deal with most of this. But partially because he was in Hawaii at the time when this was
Okay.
happening, and he was traveling, and he was preparing a travel book at the same time. So is this why he just sort of, but he doesn't seem like a person just to be too busy on one thing and leave that behind. I think he was just, fed up.
Yes.
Fed
Yeah.
up.
That's what I sense. That's what I felt in these letters, just that, um, I'm done. He says at one point, I am rather strongly inclined to let Mr. Bowman and his ilk write their own adventure stories for boys, since they know exactly how it should be done, and Miss Dalglish can edit them. You
Yeah,
can
and
hear.
the Bauman is he was a critic for or a reviewer for the Library Journal,
Right.
and
Right.
he said that you have to take the divorce thing out. We can't have this in. I'll lambaste this book, in the reviews
Yeah.
and everything. But it was already published at that time too,
Right.
so
Right.
it's like it seemed very strange for to do something like that.
Yeah.
And the editor, agent said, let him do what he's going to do, and then we'll see how that affects, or if it does affect the sales. There's nothing in there to say how it has or it hasn't, and I didn't
Right.
see anything to see if they. I don't think they did lambaste it. I think they just didn't talk about it.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
was
it's not really a huge part of the story. It's
no.
very downplayed. I expected it to be more, because I think I read this first. I read the Grumbles from the Grave before I read the novel, and I thought it was going to be a bigger part of the story, and it really, but maybe that was toned down. Maybe it was.
I think it was, but again, it's like not only she divorced her parents, John Thomas divorces his mother in a
Yes.
sense as well, because he leaves. He's going to the Hiroshi home world, which
Right.
is the race of the Lummox,
Right.
and so and that's partially he's growing up, and we got Betty here too. She's negotiating a part for him in
Yeah.
this. She wants him to be the head sort of diplomat and everything, but she negotiates something just as good,
Yep.
and has it all worked out. She's going to be marrying him,
Yeah.
and this is all part of Lummox's plan too. Is he needs to raise more John Thomases.
That's right.
This is his plan. We don't know why.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah. Why is that? What is that all about?
uh, so he doesn't deal with that. But yeah, this Bulmer really objected to the word divorce, and I'm not sure if it's in the letters or somewhere else in this here, which is a study of the juveniles,
Uh-huh.
published by Advent Publishers, by Joseph T. Major, and it's like 500 pages long,
Wow.
dealing with all the juveniles. Now, I'm not sure if it was in there or not, but I just lost my train of thought. Uh,
About where the divorce was talked
yeah,
about.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. The Heinlein was saying that it already has happened in like the society of the time, where children have taken their parents to court. Like
Uh-huh.
this was something that was precedented. Like even in they didn't mention this, but it's like Jackie Coogan took his parents to court, because he was an actor
Yeah.
with Charles Chaplin, and that. So all this stuff was there, but they objected to the word divorce. Like he's saying that's what you're objecting to, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
uh and it just seemed, well, I guess not odd, because they just don't, like, they want him to write, or they seem to want people that everybody's like goody two shoes. They don't do anything, they don't speak back, and it's like, what kid is gonna be interested in reading that at
Right.
all?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
and Dalgleish actually liked the story, and it was the only thing that she had the problem was with the divorce. And I wonder, and it's not very clear, is that she personally had a problem, but I think as an editor, she would have to point out
Yeah.
this could be a problem with
That
others, you
that's
know.
how I took it. I didn't take it in this case that that was something that she was objecting to, but that she was anticipating
Yeah.
big problems if that
And
became.
that's the difference to the Red Planet one, because the Red Planet one, it felt like there was personal, moral issues that she had
Yeah,
with the Red Planet, but
yeah,
this one not so much.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
almost felt here in this one like she was trying to say to him, I am on your side. I am fighting for you, but this is not going to pass. We're not going to get this through. So I felt like she was more of an ally in this
yeah,
situation than in the Red Planet. I just pictured this, like stereotypical, old scold, just kind of like shaking her finger at him, and that's
yeah.
not at all the sense I got here.
But this is sort of the tip of the iceberg for him, because has all this stuff built up for this time. So I don't think
Absolutely.
he was seeing it in that light
No,
at all.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then getting back to sort of the story itself with Betty as a fabulous character, and in here too, the author talks about that, Heinlein wasn't great at showing adult women. He said he was always in the background, and they were like
Yeah.
not very, uh, just basically two-dimensional. And he doesn't use that term, but I think that's what he means.
Mhm.
However, I'm not sure if I buy that fully. Like it is with the juvenile ones, but like again, it was Mark Richardson that sort of saying, well, of course, like in the juveniles, the parents aren't gonna it shouldn't have a huge role, because it's the children want to be away from the parents.
Right. Right.
So that again, I think could be symptomatic of his juveniles,
Yeah.
and not other ones, because he does have strong female adult characters in other books as well.
See,
So
I
as
don't
far as
know
I can
them,
remember,
Yeah, I take your word for that because I
yeah.
haven't read them yet, but,
That's my memory. So
yeah,
again, it's like I go back to the thing I said at the beginning, that and I said, like in the earlier live with Scott, I reserved the right to be wrong, and I reserved the right to change my mind at some point.
absolutely, absolutely, I mean, actually and I forget the characters' names now, when I think back to the Red Planet, I mean, the father wasn't such a strong character
No,
either. I mean, we
no, he
saw him
wasn't.
as kind of milquetoast. He was. I mean, he's a good guy. He's a good man, but he's not. He wasn't a strong character either. I mean, the mother was your stereotypical housewife, but the father. I remember we even talked about that in our
Yeah,
lives, that he seemed just kind of wishy washy. He wasn't. I wasn't real impressed by him. So
like the diplomat, Keku, or
yeah,
how to pronounce the
yeah,
name.
yeah. I don't know how to
Um,
pronounce it either.
he was an interesting character.
Mhm.
He was quite interesting, but again, it was like he's sort of in his dealings with Betty was almost tongue in cheek, because it's like he knew what she was doing, but she sort of he almost let her, you know, feel like she, manipulated him for something, I think. But
Right,
he didn't. He knew what was going to happen, and this is how he's going to do it. So he allowed her to do this to a certain
right,
extent. But
right.
again, it is a good character, but not, again, for a juvenile. That's the thing. It just seems so strange that this whole diplomatic, and the court scene too. I can't see uh, anybody. I found it tedious. Yeah,
Yes, I did
and,
too.
and so a teenager, I think, would find it tedious.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the diplomatic. I found some of the diplomatic stuff interesting, because the interpreter that he had with him was a Medusoid or whatever, that
Yes.
had sort of
Yeah, with the
almost,
tentacles.
yeah, things, and then he's afraid of snakes, and that's where this guy has some interesting comparisons to this, and he talks about, Indiana Jones, oh, it had to be snakes.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, that
uh,
that was that was great. That part I thought was
Constance is here. Hello.
Hi, Constance. Mhm.
Yeah. So, but it just seemed very very strange. But and the other thing is too that he had to do something because this lummox is so huge, and the race of the Hiroshi are small. So it's like the whole thing is just like lummox has been overeating.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and and Lummox is going to be married. So I think this is another thing that hasn't been touched on that Heinlein I think was poking, at people is a bride overeating. You know,
Ah,
bride like I that came to my mind, and
interesting,
I
interesting.
wonder if he did that,
Oh, funny.
as
Yeah,
a bit of a joke,
probably,
because
probably.
he's now on a diet, to get smaller.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah, because
Uh,
he's or she, yeah, she's not
yeah.
supposed to be what she has become. She's gigantic. Oh my god.
And like like I say, there are bits that I thought were really good, is when John Thomas finds his great grandfather's diary, and he reads stuff about going to the planet and how he got the creature and a lummox, and I found that quite fascinating. I found that interesting.
Yeah.
And then when he runs off with lummox, like he first sells lummox to
Yes.
a
A
museum, or
museum, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then decides against it and runs off into the forest with lummox.
Right.
And I found that kind of exciting, because
I did
that was
too.
interesting.
Yep.
And then it sort of ends while Betty comes and gets them thing. But there's an interesting thing that happens with Betty before they get sort of captured. He wrestles with Betty.
Yeah.
He wrestles,
Yes. Yeah.
and I think that was something, because it's like that was another thing that people were saying, that it wasn't wrestling.
What
It wasn't wrestling.
was he really doing there? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it suggested.
I
The
think that's
nature of
true because I think we're not really made to see them as boyfriend and girlfriend because that
yeah,
would be inappropriate. That would bring the censors out again. So
yeah,
instead they're like, punching each other in the shoulder, and wrestling. But yeah, it's probably all code.
yeah, yeah. I think it. Well, with Heinlein, I think it is, because the John Thomas aspect,
Yes.
and all sorts of things, and also Lummox is he needs more. He's raising John Thomas's.
Right.
He's
We
he's
need another
raising
one.
his pets. He needs
Yeah.
the next generation of pets, or
Yeah,
she needs the next generation of pets,
definitely.
and,
And
and that
John Thomas is like, oh, he's about to graduate from high school. So
yeah,
he is about to become an adult. He's not a 12-year-old kid, I
no, no,
mean,
no.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, he's on the verge of adult. Like, they don't say what the age of consent is here,
Yeah.
but we can assume 18, possibly 21 at the most.
Yeah.
So somewhere between that, he's 17 and 20 or something like that.
Right.
Most likely 17.
Right.
That's what I sort of figure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it is very much in the character. Like, Betty is similar to, and again, I can't remember the name from
No, I
the
can't
girl
either.
from
I can't think of
Menace
her
from
name
Earth,
either.
where it's like it's a platonic relationship she has with the other guy, but even his name is also funny. It's like Hard Stee or something like that.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah,
no.
that's the service. So
Yeah, not so subtle. Yeah.
yeah, he's getting this stuff in, and it's going over their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's slipping this stuff in,
You
and
can't blame him. My God, look what they did to him.
yeah, so he's got some private jokes, that he can chuckle about, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was a little disappointed just talking about what a great character Betty is. I was just a little disappointed in what is to become of her at the end because she's such a she's such a strong character and intellectually and physically and she just kind of runs rings around around John Thomas and then at the end, I mean, we're to assume her role is going to be and not that that's an insignificant role, but now she's going to become a wife and a mother, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but the only other wife and mother we have in the story is John's mother, and she's kind of a,
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, it doesn't really, it makes it sound like that, but I think is that because she's pushing to get this position for him,
yeah,
that she'll be the driving force, and she'll wind up, ruling the Hiroshi at some point, I figure,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, that's true. I mean, she is the um she's the opposite of the mother,
Yeah.
and she's definitely a driving force here. It makes me worry a little bit about John Thomas too. I mean, he's going from one, you know very
Being
controlling,
controlled. Yeah.
yeah,
But
to
but who's controlling everyone? It seems to be Lummox
that's true too.
is there's something going on there, which is an interesting thing. Like when you think of the story as a whole, it's like, what is this race? Because this Medusoid, and I can't remember his name. It's like Fatima or something like that.
Yeah, I
The
didn't know how to
character.
pronounce that. It was like
Yeah,
FT.
yeah. I think it's supposed to be Fatima because I came across somewhere where it did say it's like I say Hiroshi, but I think it's Hiroshi or something like that. Is the
Okay.
like it's supposed to be like Harusians, like Russians,
Oh,
and I took
oh,
it actually as like they're Japanese,
yeah,
Hiroshi, like it sounds
yes,
Japanese,
definitely.
but I think he's done it both Harusians, and it sounds Russian and Japanese, uh,
Yes,
so there's something else going on there that he must
interesting.
have been doing.
I'm
Uh,
sure. So
but
the doctor's name was FTAEML.
yeah, Fatima or something, or Fatimal or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know. I just kind of skipped over it every time I saw it because I couldn't get a word in my head.
But he's translating the race,
Right.
and it's unclear whether he is manipulating as well there,
Mm,
like creating tension between the two, because the humans think that the Hiroshi or the race there has enough power just to snap the earth, just destroy everything
right.
if they don't get Lummox,
Yeah.
and so it's very interesting. And the other thing is too that they seem to be keeping the Lummox in the dark, because until he translates and tells Lummox what the his race or her race is doing,
Right.
she doesn't know, and then just sort of swats the guy across the field, and
Yeah.
stomps on him basically.
Right.
You know, doesn't kill him, but
No, but could
uh,
have.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's an interesting thing, and it's like, well, this race is old. They lived for thousands of years. This plan of this marriage or queen that Lummox is, we're not 100% sure, but this has been happening for, like, it's been going on for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Before Christ, they mention.
Right. Right.
So it's it's really weird what this civilization is doing, and they never encountered them before, and but this other race, the Medusoid race, had, um and it's it's kind of, it's interesting of what his thing is, because he's been hired to be the intermediary. And again, like I say, this guy does some interesting thing. He compares that race to the Ferengi from Star Trek,
Oh, oh,
as
oh.
an intermediary race or something.
Interesting.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. And then he brings in, like, yes minister and yes prime minister, because of the Kiku, the diplomat. So
Right. Right.
it's interesting.
Right.
We've got Joe here. I reread the Star Beast again last year. Betty did all right. I feel pretty certain. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They both learned a lot through John's mom's mistakes. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. She definitely would. Um, John is. again, it's like his character isn't. He's a bit of a wet rag, you know. He's a wet
Yeah.
blanket, you know.
Yeah, I can't even thinking about it, and I just read it, I can't get a really clear picture of him. He just seems kind of manipulated, and he's the most active when he decides to run away, and
Yeah,
that's probably his biggest moment. But yeah, I can't really get much of a sense of his character. I see the mother very clearly. I see Betty very clearly. I see Lummox very clearly, but I don't have a good sense of him the way we did, of the young man in the Red Planet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's definitely different. Well, it's different, but there's similarities. That's the thing, because like there is the change through things, and goes back to um where was it in some essay that I had read about Heinlein. Like he felt that once the like the story continues, but the dilemma or the person has changed, that's
Mhm.
where the story ends. So this is now, John Thomas has changed, and all the characters have a change that's happening here, but we don't know what's going to happen on the planet, because
Right. Right.
it's like what is this society? We all we're getting is hints at things, and it's the same as even in the Red Planet, because we get hints of the Martians, which were very intriguing.
Yes.
But I think there's more of that. Definitely the Martians in the Stranger in a Strange Land, which actually the Red Planet was sort of scooped out of
Uh-huh.
partially
Uh-huh.
before the Stranger to Strange Land was actually published. So
Mm.
but yeah, so we've got these themes that so far, and with the two juveniles that we've done, but we've got the themes of the characters growing, becoming a man, and it is centered on the male character, but the female character, especially Betty, outshines definitely, you know,
Yeah. And she
and
already was who she is.
yeah,
She doesn't grow into that person.
yeah,
She's very assertive and smart, and she's got her identity all made already, and then she just gets to action. So,
and I could see in Red Planet the sister being very similar, but we don't get enough of her. But she's
yeah.
very, very similar in many ways. So
Yeah.
you might just have a template for adolescent females, and he just uses this all the time. I don't know. We'll find out, because I didn't expect when I was choosing these that I didn't. I only wanted to, I think, do two juveniles, but I think we got three or maybe four in here. So it was like
Oh,
more
wow.
than I expected. More than I
What else?
expected.
What other ones are we doing? I have the list, but I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, well, we've got have spacesuit will travel.
Oh, okay.
Uh, that one definitely is,
Yes.
and I think even Podkane of Mars might be. I think that's
Oh,
on the
is
list.
that? Is that?
That could be, and there might be another. There's more than I expected, because I
Uh-huh.
didn't think Podkane of Mars was.
Okay.
Oh, we've got rocket ship Galileo as well.
Oh, yes, and that definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted that one was because that was his first one, and I don't think it's going to age well, but I
Uh,
want to reread that. But and then have spacesuit will travel, because I think have spacesuit will travel could be the last
I
one.
think it is the last one. I think I remember that. I
But the
believe it.
interesting thing is he has in here Podkane of Mars as after that. So that's where I'm a little.
See.
Oh no, actually, okay. Have spacesuit will travel. Yeah, that's probably the last for Scribner's, if these are in order, and then Starship Troopers, and then Podkane of Mars.
Well, what is the story with Starship Troopers? I mean, even in Grumbles here, that's listed in the chapter, The Last of the Juveniles, and that's the one that Scribner's wouldn't publish, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that is still a juvenile. I mean, that is
It
considered.
is a juvenile, yeah, but it's very war orientated, you know, and a lot of violence and stuff. So I think they
That's why.
definitely wanted to distance themselves.
Okay.
But yeah, the have the spacesuit will travel was the last
Right.
Scribner's one, I think. But I don't know where Podkane comes in.
Podkane comes right after
Yeah.
Starship Troopers, 1962.
Um, uh, I'm just
So
looking.
here, right in it says, is Poddy a juvenile? I didn't think of it as such, and I suggest that it violates numerous taboos for the juvenile market. It seems to me that it is what the Swedes call a cadet book, upper teenage plus such adults and juveniles as may enjoy it. And the American trade book market does not recognize such a category. Huh.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's classing it as a juvenile.
Yeah.
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 And
And this book does too. It puts it in the chapter with the last of the juveniles, but
yeah.
I guess not according to Scribner. So
Yeah, and I wanted to basically sidestep a little bit the Starship Troopers at the moment because that's the so popular one, but I wanted to have that beginning and ending, and then the Red Planet sort of snuck in there,
uh-huh.
and this one is snuck in, and then
Right, right.
I didn't realize Podkane was so.
Interesting. So
Oh, Constance, yeah, I have faint memory of Lazarus Long. Is he in the books you're reading? No, I think there's some of the future history stories that we're reading, but I don't think any of them have Lazarus Long. I think that was a conscious thing to sort of, or at least on my part, was hoping to try to sidestep that for the moment, and then that'll be another if I continue if we continue next year or something like that. And I would like to get into the future history ones and the Lazarus Long ones.
oh,
Um,
interesting.
so those are a little different. I wanted to sidestep those, and like I say, Starship Troopers and Stranger to Strange Land. I want
Hmm.
to sidestep those because those are especially the Stranger to Strange Land, because that's a beast of its own, you know, completely different from this.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and it may not seem like there was a design to this, but it was partially designed,
Oh,
you
it
know,
seems like there's a definite design. Absolutely. So, huh.
or at least my choices, some of the
Yeah.
design.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah, it like I say, it's it would be a bad book for somebody to read first for him, I think, and then would they continue on reading after that? I don't know. And
that's a really good question, because if this had been the first, back when Ben was directing me to the juveniles, if I had read this first, I wouldn't have gone on.
yeah, you were saying that he suggested the juveniles, and I
Yes.
was saying that I wouldn't have chosen juveniles. I would have chosen some short stories, you know,
Yes.
and because that's I and again, like I say, this is a journey for me. This is an exploration,
Right.
and I'm still at a point of thinking that his short fiction is better than his longer fiction. But
Hmm.
so far, we've only dealt with two juveniles as the longer fiction, so
Right.
that I'm still at this level, until we get to uh, okay, we got Glory Road we got Simon and Eternity, which is April, and that's a collection of short stuff.
Those
That
are
was
shorts.
a
Right.
mistake. I thought that was more of a novel, and I didn't really look at that, so that didn't fit in my plan so much. But oh
Okay.
well. And then Glory Road is a more adult one, and then The Moon is a Harsh Mistress in
Okay.
June. So and I love that one when I first read it. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. So it'll be interesting to see if it holds up after 40 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll see. Like for my mind, others might find his novels better than the short stories.
Uh-huh.
But I've so far I always liked him
You
as
like
a
the
short
short?
story writer
Had you
because
read this one before, Sean? Had you read The Star Beast? Did you?
no, no,
You
I've not read that before.
had?
There was nothing in it that made me um, think of like as I'm reading it and going, I've read this before. In Red Planet, it was like, oh yes, as I'd forgotten that I read it, but then it was like, oh, I know what's going to happen next
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
as I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And Joseph saying he agrees with, yeah, the short stories are
Uh
better.
huh.
So yeah,
Good.
and again, he's very decisive or divisive for people who are fans of him.
Mm-hmm.
Some think that his novels are better, and they don't like his short stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Menace from Earth collection of short stories, I thought was they were amazing. They were really really good. Half of them were, I think, or at least two or three, I think, were done under one of his pseudonyms, the Anson McDonald, by his bootstraps. Definitely was,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was wonderful to reread. I
Mm-hmm.
had not read The Menace from Earth before, but that is actually part of his future history stories,
Oh,
as
okay.
is the the Moon is a Harsh Mistress is part of it, but it doesn't have Lazarus Long. I'm pretty sure Lazarus Long is not. He's not in Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, but again, it's so long ago since I read it.
What is the big conflict about Starship Trooper that people like argue about? What is so controversial about that book?
Well, I think it's just because it's basically juvenile and it's war. It's just all it is just fighting an alien, bug-eyed monsters
Okay.
basically. And but it's a very popular book.
Yeah.
People love it, and it was made into a movie. Oh, that's the other thing, that this Star Beast, I think, was bought by Disney to be made into a film in the 90s.
In the
Um,
90s?
yeah, in 1996, I think it was bought, but it hasn't been done yet, as far as I know.
Wow. No, I think we would have come across that somewhere in our travels if it had been made into a film yet.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And Constant saying that I know I read The Moon is Harsh Mistress first, others followed, but I don't know which ones. Yeah, I don't. I think, well, I first started with his short fiction because I was reading a lot of anthologies and
Mm,
magazines,
mhm.
older magazines, and then I found, I think, like a dime copy of The Moon is Irish Mistress, and read it, and I loved it
Wow.
at the
Okay.
time. So it'd be interesting to see if that. The notebooks of Lazarus Song, yeah, those are kind of neat. But yeah, it is something that it would be nice to read through his future history stuff, and I kind of want to do that at some point, but I want to keep that as sort of a separate thing,
Separate project.
especially if I'm going to do the Lazarus Long ones, I'm definitely going to put that in with the future history ones and do that. But there's so many that are good. The short stories, like The Green Hills of Earth, is a fabulous short
Mm,
story and collection as well.
mm.
And that's where, to me, he shines. But again, I might change my opinion as we go along with this.
Mm.
It's never been made into a movie, but there are other Star Beasts working title for Alien, Doctor Who episodes. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's been bought. It's been bought in '96. Whether they still have it, because a lot of times they buy the rights to it, but then if they don't make it in a certain time, the rights revert back to
Right.
to the estate or the owner. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it is. My memory is correct. Yeah, Lazarus Long is not in Harsh Mistress. Yeah.
I did see that though, that there was a Doctor Who episode, and I wondered if it had any connection. If because I don't know what the episode is about. I wondered if it had any connection to this.
I am sure I've seen it, but I don't remember. I don't think it probably has. Well, a lot of the stuff they do borrow, things
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so they
I
might.
did see that. I came across that somewhere in my reading, but I don't know the episode. So
Yeah, like all I know is that it was you know, um it was optioned for film
Yeah.
lot with some other stuff too, and I
Huh.
think it might have been bought at the same time as Starship Troopers. So
Oh.
I don't know when that was done because they were talking about. I think it's in this Heinlein's Children, and they mentioned a whole bunch of stuff that was bought around that time, and saying that this has been made into a film, and this they haven't yet of the other.
Hmm.
Yeah, Long Lazarus Long, yeah, is Methuselah's Children,
Okay.
which is the last in the chronicle order. Yeah, from Future History, and then the next appears in Time Enough for Love. Yeah, that was that was a part of Scott and I's in my discussion from Lexi Panchin's SF and Dimension, because there's two essays and a short story that is Heinlein related,
Oh.
and it's basically there's 100-page essay about Time Enough for Love, but it's a review of a book that they haven't read that hadn't come out yet.
Oh, really?
It's a very weird essay, and talking about his sort of career up to that point. It basically says, Heinlein, you have the potential of doing something really great in this book, and you should be able to do it because you've done this, but we think you're going to put
Oh
out
no.
crap and put out something that's bloated.
Oh, wow.
Constance saying it's a wonderful episode. If it is the one, I think the
Oh, the
Star.
Doctor Who?
Yeah, I can't remember what. Oh, is that the one where the beast was in the moon?
Let's
Is
see.
that the one that the beast is that there there's a creature in the moon? I can't remember now. That's the one that's popped into my mind.
Let's see. I don't know. Constance will know. Let's see.
But yeah, I can't quite remember.
Star
Yeah,
Beast is the first of 3-hour-long special episodes, marking the 60th anniversary. It's the one where a spaceship crashes to Earth. Let's see.
yeah.
Let me see.
Okay, yeah, I must have seen it, but I don't.
The new focuses on the newly regenerated Doctor being drawn back to the life of former companion Donna Noble, whose memory he was forced to erase to save her life in Journey's End.
Oh, I did see that. I did see that, but I don't remember it. I don't remember it. So it was kind of forgettable then. It must have been.
He is, upon his arrival to present day London, he is caught up in a fight to the death when a spaceship crash lands with an alien army of, is it Wrath warriors pursuing a small furry creature known as the Meep? The Meep?
I don't
Meep.
remember.
Yeah, that's what Constance said.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Uh, I had an impression that Star Beast and Starman Jones were set in the same. Yeah, it could very well be. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. I know I've read Starman Jones, but yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. It could very well be because he does do that kind of thing, because like I say, the future history one, but he stopped doing the future history for quite a while. Like it was short-lived thing, mostly short stories, and then he picked it up again and again, later, but he changed the sort of focus of it,
Hmm.
from what I know and what I remember.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's yeah, it's I for somebody who's interested in Robert Heinlein, yeah, I would say read this, but don't read this as your first book, and don't expect a lot from it.
Yeah.
I would say, because it just doesn't. doesn't hold together as a story. Like it's like 50% um, juvenile and then 50% not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just don't. It just seems odd, and it just took me so long to read it.
For such a short book, yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely was not a quick read like Red Planet was, for sure.
yeah, because I was reading this at like 3-4 pages at a time.
Oh, that is a slog. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So next month, and this is only volume one. In the UK here,
Oh,
they split it up into
oh,
two volumes.
really? Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
have it all in one volume. Yeah.
yeah. They've got in this one it's golf and uh golf and uh, Elsewin. Yeah, Elsewin. Short
Interesting.
story, and then the novella, I guess. So, so that'll be interesting to read these, because these are not juvenile. I
Right.
don't know if any of these, um, for some reason, one of them makes me think that it was a future history story, but I'm not sure.
Huh.
Uh, Joseph saying for a non-juvenile novel, good Heinlein book read. Yeah, yeah, we have this on the list. Yeah, Puppet Masters
Right.
is very good. Yeah,
That's coming up.
that's a good one. Yeah, the spaceship Simon Bolivar and Star Beast and the spaceship Asgard and Starman Jones get lost the same way. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, either yeah, it's the same universe, or he just recycling
Mm.
little bits and pieces, which authors do all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, but why not have? Because yeah, like a lot of writers say that everything that they write is in the same universe. It's like Asimov, wrote all these short stories and the robot short stories, then the Empire stories, and then Foundation, and then he spent the last couple decades of his life connecting them all and saying they're all a future history.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
wasn't planned. Like the John W. Campbell went to both of them, and Heinlein made a chart of his future history stories, and he had titles for stories, and then he plopped them into the timeline, because he had it all worked out. And Campbell asked Asimov to do the same, and Asimov didn't like doing that kind of thing, and he never did. So he just wrote, and then in retrospect, he sort of connected them, and
Oh,
he basically connected everything he wrote, like almost all the science fiction, other than possibly a few things.
wow.
Almost every single thing he had worked or was going to work into his future history in
Interesting.
one form or another. So
Wow. Wow.
so yeah. So this is next month. No date when we'll do this. We generally do it around the middle of the month, but this month was a bit of a mix up for a variety of reasons. But yeah, somewhere in April we will do the assignment in eternity.
Very good. Very good.
So thanks everybody for stopping by, and
Thank you.
we didn't talk much about the book itself or the story, but it was
Oh, we
hopefully
did.
interesting enough.
A lot about the characters. So.
Yeah, yeah. I can't think. Is there anything else to say? I don't. I think we covered pretty well everything because, um, yeah, I just liked Betty's character. I
I
really
did
liked.
too. I did too. I was glad she was in there. She saved it for me. So
Yeah, like even the doldrums of the court case.
yeah,
When she was in court,
being the attorney in court.
yeah, yeah, she brightened up those spots.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Joseph, well, thank you for stopping by,
Ah, thank you. Yeah.
and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Take care, everyone.